το οποίο έχει να κάνει, έγραψε κάποιο παιδί ότι χωρίς το μαυροψύχη πώς διακρίνουμε το καλό και το κακό. Ναι, συντάσσομαι μέχρι τώρα, ολοκληρώθηκε. Μέχρι τώρα ακριβώς αυτό που λες γινότανε. Τώρα πλέον όμως συμπαντικά νομοτελειακά η πηγή το αποφάσισε ότι αυτή η μαθητεία της ανθρωπότητας ολοκληρώθηκε. Και όποιοι κατάλαβαν, κατάλαβαν. Όποιοι όμως δεν καταλάβανε, είναι πρόβλημα του καθένα ξεχωριστά, ό,τι δεν κατάλαβε. Έστω και μισό που δεν κατάλαβε, το μισό που δεν κατάλαβε είναι δικό του θέμα. Αν δεν κατάλαβε τίποτα, πάλι δικό του θέμα είναι. Δεν έχει να κάνει πλέον η πηγή. Όταν εμφανίζεται σε ένα βίντεο που γνωρίζετε στον κατακλυσμό, ο Ηλίας ήλιος δείχνει στα φέρετρα της ΛΙΤ τον κεντρικό ήλιο Αλκιόνα και βλέπουμε δύο ήλιους με τα μάτια μας. Βίντεο, όχι εικόνες. Όταν το 2015 στο κεφάλαιο ανακεφαλές όλων αυτών είχαμε μιλήσει για δύο ήλιους και το σύμπαν διάλεξε στα δικά μας τα χέρια να έχουμε σε βίντεο τους δύο ήλιους. Όταν είδατε την εικόνα προχθές, η οποία ήταν η εικόνα του Ιησού και κάναμε την ομιλία «Απόλυτος σεβασμός στο ΟΛΟΝ», όταν κάναμε πάλι με την ίδια εικόνα πριν από κάποιους μήνες μια ομιλία «Θα σωθούν μόνο τα παιδιά». Όλα αυτά μαζί με την έλλειμμα υγρασίας, μαζί γιατί δεν τους βγήκε αυτό το όπλο που είχαν φτιάξει με τέτοια τεχνολογία. Όταν τα νερά 8 μήνες τώρα παγκόσμια έχουν υποχωρήσει. Όταν σήμερα που λένε αυτά, θα σας μεταφέρω και την τελευταία δήλωση του ξανθού γένους του Πούτιν αμέσως μετά το βίντεο, θα καταλάβετε ότι τα πάντα έχουν ολοκληρωθεί. Απλά πλέον θα δοκιμαστούν εξημών και ο τελευταίος που θα ενδώσει ή όχι. Το ποιοι είναι αυτοί, το ποιο σκοπό και ατζέντα υπηρετούν. Ποια είναι η παλιά ατζέντα και τιμοκατάλογος του ΜΑΒΡΟΨΥΧΗ, ο μη φανερός. Σήμερα ποιος είναι ο φανερός τιμοκατάλογος του ΜΑΒΡΟΨΥΧΗ, όλα αυτά σας έχουν γίνει απόλυτα κατανοητά με αποδείξεις λεπτομέρειας. Ακόμα και ο πλανητάρχης Biden, που τώρα έχει πάει στην Ατρομέδα από το φόβο του, ή τον κάνουν ταντά οι Ταλιμπάν τα υπερόπλα που έχουν στα χέρια τους. Στο κομμάτι αυτό θα βάλουμε ένα ντοκιματέρ, το οποίο είναι 1,5 ώρα, αλλά θα σας το ξεκινήσω στη 1 ώρα περίπου, θα δούμε μόνο 30 λεπτά. Εάν θέλετε για σας, μπορείτε να το δείτε στα περισσότερα από κάτω. Θα το ξεκινήσω στο τελευταίο κομμάτι του ντοκιματέρ. Όλα τα προηγούμενα που θα δείτε μέχρι τα 50 λεπτά, θα δείτε απόλυτες αναλύσεις, όλα αυτά που ήδη έχετε παραλάβει από τον κατακλυσμό. Δηλαδή, όλα τα ψέματα που ακολούθησαν οι άνθρωποι, όλες τις πεποιθήσεις, όλα τον τρόπο που εκλειβιζόταν η ανθρώπινη νόηση. Όμως, στα τελευταία 30 λεπτά που θα σας βάλω τώρα να δείτε, σταθείτε όσο μπορείτε σε αυτά που θα δείτε, γιατί θα δείτε ιδιαίτερα πράγματα. Εάν σε περίπτωση ακόμα μια φορά που το συνηθίζουν και μας κατεβάσουν το βίντεο, θα ξαναεπανέλθω και το βίντεο αυτό θα το δείτε μόνο στα περισσότερα. Αν το αφήσουν, γιατί είναι ένα βίντεο το οποίο κυκλοφορεί στο διαδίκτυο πολλάκις, όχι μόνο από έναν χρήστη, και το δείτε, θα δώσετε πολύ μεγάλη σημασία σε αυτό που θα σας δείξω και για όλο θα το δείτε στα περισσότερα από την αρχή.
It going, that's nothing more than just a hamster on a wheel, just running and running and running, not really getting anywhere. And that's
flame, he has poured bleach on them, acid, and they still endure. In addition, they are able to replicate growing outside of the body in a petri dish. This is highly sophisticated technology going on by itself, not in a laboratory. People with advanced Morgellons syndrome started with fibers coming out of their skin, and they're now observing very strange crystalline forms and metallic devices. plaque structures, even grooved metallic devices. On the right, you'll see one device, the front and the back. The fiber strands that you see here were made of cellulose and GNA. GNA is DNA's chemical cousin. It's a nanotechnology building block. The nanostructures contain additional properties not found in DNA, including the ability to form mirror image structures. Here you have a nanoarray, a tiny device used in biotech for DNA hybridization. And on the left, you see a diagram from an industry website of a nanoarray, and on the slide you can see actually two of them. She's marked them with red X's that came out of her body, looking exactly like this. So, we begin with the emergence of basic filaments, followed by more complex structures. So what processes are going on here? Are these materials combining to form devices that are working together inside us? What is happening to our biology? And remember that tissue samples obtained from ordinary people who have no Morgellons symptoms, no lesions, can be cultured to produce the very same filaments found in people with Morgellons. So we would have to conclude that Morgellons is like the canary in the coal mine, and that only some people are exuding the materials. And could that be because their bodies are rejecting it, while our bodies are integrating it?
There has been a force that is mostly unseen in control of this planet for an extremely long time, and evidence very much suggests that this force is attempting to manipulate the evolution of human consciousness that is currently taking place. It is very likely the same force that first reduced mankind to the impaired state we now find ourselves in, where our pineal gland is closed, thereby cutting us off from our higher senses, and where our DNA is 97% dormant, whereby each person is reduced to operating to only 3% of their actual capability. When one examines the evidence and steps back to take in the entire picture, there can be no doubt that the vast majority of human beings live their lives quite literally in a socially and biologically induced trance. And it is due to this trance-like state of the people that we now find the world in such a degraded state. Therefore, the solution becomes clear. Mankind must awaken. But how? How do we transform the collective human trance into wakefulness? How do we bring about the mass awareness of the people? And what steps can be taken to allow both humanity and the earth to once again return to a natural state of abundance? Clearly, the first step is for people to understand and accept the truth regarding the current condition of mankind and the urgency of addressing the situation we are faced with. But even when people know the truth, as many do, most are simply waiting for social or financial Armageddon, waiting for December 21st, 2012, waiting for ascension or waiting for the rapture. And due to this lack of positive and decisive action, while people wait for redemption to be delivered to them via an outside source, the destructive machine of modern civilization continues to grind slowly forward towards its inevitable conclusion. Obviously, it is extremely important for mankind to truly grasp the depths of the problems we are facing and to the peril that our collective failure to deal with things has placed us in. And this peril includes not only the human race, but the entire earth and all life upon it. Because if mankind allows the ship of state to continue sailing in its current direction, within possibly 3 to 5 generations, we are very likely to have allowed the creation of a world that will no longer support life as we know it.
There's an incredible disconnect between reality and what we're fed as reality, such as this little electronic box that millions upon billions of homes have now, and we now digest all of our reality from this little electronic tube. None of what we're actually getting in this tube is reality other than the fact that we're watching television. That's it. That's the only portion of that that's actually real. But what we do is we lose ourselves then. We almost become too identified. We forget that we're even existent, so we are identified with everything that we're seeing, and this becomes our reality. And we forget that not only is this cherry-picked information, but above and beyond all that, no one even stops to think that this is somebody's interpretation of what happened in an area. So everything that we're getting is literally somebody else's creation. It's a manufactured idea that's put into this little tube and then projected into us as reality. And that now is the basis for how we act in our society. So the way we dress, the way we talk, what we do, what we're afraid of, what we're attracted to, what we want to drive, the house that we want, the money, all these things are driven by somebody else's perception. They're driven mostly by wants of other people, and they arrived at those wants from other people. And it all comes back to really just the fundamental basis that none of this is reality. It's manufactured. It's not really pertinent to our life. It's not really profound. There's really no importance to it. We're just applying value to it because all of these things, the clothing and the cars and the job and the money in the bank account and why we want this job, we don't even understand why anymore because we relate all of our wants, all of our desires to what these other people want and what they desire. And if you actually get to the core of it, we don't even truly want these things. We just want the other people around us to see that we have what they want because that gives us a measure of control or a measure of power. And it all boils down to a level of security. And that's all that all of this really is the fact that people are following these fashions they don't understand. They're following these ideals that they don't understand. They're doing it because they want to fit into some identity that they're eventually creating for themselves to be the most secure, the most powerful, the most prominent, the most beautiful, the most affluent person in that field, so that everybody else around will give that person support because they want to be near you. And that's all it is. We just want this closeness. We want this connection with people. And unfortunately now we are contriving it. We're forcing people to want a connection with us for means that really have no basis in love, no basis in real relationships. So all of our relationships are based upon power and fear and based upon manipulation and lies and trying to get this and trying to get that. And none of it's true interaction anymore.
Science is great with all the beautiful technologies, but many of the problems we are trying to solve, we created. If things stay as usual, if business stays as usual, then we have about 100 years of life on this planet. But if you think there is hope, then we have to start taking action right now.
Indeed, if heavy industry and the genetic manipulation of the Earth environment is allowed to progress at its current rate, then the only life that will be able to survive on Earth will need to be of a very robust nature. Such life would be transhuman by necessity.
Biology divides life into three kingdoms: bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. Bacteria and archaea are simple organisms with no subcellular compartments. Eukarya are complex, with defined cell compartments and internal organelles, mini organs like mitochondria that make DNA and energy for the cell. Plants, animals, and humans are eukaryotic, as are fungi and slime molds. The archaea are the hardiest of the life forms. They're able to withstand grinding pressure, heat, acidity, and alkalinity. They can live in volcanoes, geysers, and the ice shelf. Now, the materials appearing within these filaments are as tough as archaea. They look like bacteria, and they self-replicate. And natural fibers would be classified as fungal in the domain of eukaryotes. But these fibers contain forms from the other two groups inside them. You're looking at a tubular fiber with self-replicating internal elements resembling bacteria and behaving like archaea. That does not happen in the natural world. They are designed to endure almost anything.
In the social and political climate of the 21st century, mankind is truly facing some very great challenges. Many of them made all the more difficult due to the fact that they are challenges that go mostly unnoticed by the vast majority of people. The vast majority of people in the world today only perceive the world the way it appears on the surface. However, the real truth is that the world that we live in today is actually very different to that which most people perceive it to be. Because just below the surface of everyday life, beneath the social and political distractions of the reality offered to the masses via their television, there exists another world. The world that most people perceive is simply a facade. It is an illusionary reality where nothing is what it seems. It is a world where our social system is designed to foster division. Our education system is designed to conceal knowledge. Our health system is designed to create sickness. Our financial system is designed to steal wealth. Our community is designed to create disunity. And our very civilization itself is wholly uncivilized. We live in a world where 2% of the population controls 98% of the global resources, while the other 98% of people are left to compete against each other in order to gather some small fraction of the other 2% that is left to them in order to support their lives and their families. In fact, the world of today is so disjointed and so out of balance that the most amazing part of it all is that there are actually people who cannot seem to see it. And this is because the systems of control that have been put in place to blind people to the true realities of our world have been very cleverly and very meticulously constructed. Though much of our society may appear to be free on the surface, if the truth be known, mankind is actually far from free. We are simply free range, for the world of modern times is actually a very controlled place. But the situation is not wholly lost, for the simple truth is that mankind has allowed their servants to take over the mansion, and these public servants have worked and are continuing to work to steal everything of value that they can from the people, while gradually enslaving the world to a set of rules of their own contrivance. Legislation that has been cleverly designed to remove actual law from the planet and impose in its stead the will of individuals. When one puts all the pieces of the puzzle together on the table, the chemtrails, the HAARP arrays that are appearing all over the planet, the promotion of wireless technology, the smart meters, the introduction of repressive legislation such as Codex Alimentarius, the mandatory use of Monsanto genetically modified food, the destruction of the water table, the introduction of brain-inhibiting toxins such as fluoride into people's diets, it becomes quite evident that the ruling factions on this planet are actively engaged in the genetic modification of all life on this planet in order to further the transhumanist agenda. It is being done quite deliberately and quite purposefully, and it is being done with neither the knowledge nor the consent of the vast majority of mankind. And all the evidence needed to support this conclusion is right before your eyes, if people would simply take the time to look. The truth is that everything we are facing is visible in plain sight, and so is its inevitable conclusion. It's just that people tend to focus on their own little symptom and never step back to view the entire structure of our world holistically, and thus our response to the problem is compartmentalized, essentially rendering it ineffective. And this is all done by design, because in addressing their respective symptoms, people are trained to believe they have to work within the parameters of the system, rather than addressing the actual root of the problem. every single government that exists anywhere in the world today is currently operating in breach of the trust that has been granted to it by the people of their nation. And this is true regardless of which country we are talking about. It is true whether it is a government consisting of duly elected politicians claiming to act in the best interest of the people, whether they are acting out of greed or whether they are simply acting through their belief that the system is real. It is true whether it is a military dictatorship falsely declaring a self-granted right to dictate what is good for others. It is true whether it consists of a monarchy that has declared its divine right to rule and supposedly care for its subjects. Because the reality is that every single government or ruling body in the world today is abusing the power granted to it by the people of the nation it governs. Exhibit A, the Earth. The remedy is for mankind to re-establish themselves as who and what they are, because the only ones who have any chance of addressing this situation are the people themselves. The first thing to be done is for people to notice their surroundings and to realize that very simple alternative to the wantonly destructive direction of our current system exists right now.
Carbon at the nanoscale is actually transparent and flexible. And when it's in this form, if I combine it with a polymer and affix it to your window, when it's in its colored state, it will reflect away all heat and light, and when it's in its bleached state, it will let all the light and heat through, and any combination in between. To change its state, by the way, takes 2 volts for a millisecond pulse. And once you've changed its state, it stays there until you change its state again. The nanomaterial, 2 nanomaterials, a detector and an imager, and it takes all the infrared available at night, converts it into an electron with a space of 2 small films. This is taking infrared radiation, wavelength, converting it into an electron. What if we combined it with this? Suddenly, you've converted energy into an electron on a plastic surface that you can stick on your window. But because it's flexible, it can be on any surface whatsoever. The power plant of tomorrow is no power plant. I can generate energy cleanly, efficiently, and cheaply right where I am. It's my energy. And if I don't need it, I can convert it back up on the window to energy, light, and beam it, line of sight, to your place. And for that, I do not need an electric grid between us. The grid of tomorrow is no grid. And energy, clean, efficient energy, will one day be free.
This type of technology exists right now, and the global implementation of such energy systems could begin tomorrow, thereby freeing mankind of its financial shackles and simultaneously circumventing some of the most pollutive industries on Earth. And such technology could be implemented tomorrow if the people simply did so themselves. To begin the process of change from this current destructive society, there needs to be an immediate and global movement of people. The people need to occupy everything, but in order to do so, they first need to occupy themselves. As a society, we need an immediate and global cancellation of all debt, thereby freeing each person from the clutches of financial terrorism that now hold them. And this should be closely followed by a switch to alternative energy devices, such as the carbon energy device demonstrated by Justin Hall. And these steps need to be implemented by the people themselves. It cannot be done from within the legal parameters provided by the current system, as the current system simply will not allow it. It won't allow it because the current system is designed not to service mankind, but rather to protect and sustain itself at mankind's expense. Such a process of change will only ever succeed if it is implemented by the people themselves, regardless of what legislation has been put in place to prevent them from doing so, because legislation is not law. Legislation is simply rules written on pieces of paper by public servants. Rules designed to eradicate actual law from existence and to impose the will of a ruling cartel in its place, to then impose itself upon mankind's very genetic and biological structure to serve a transhumanist agenda designed to enslave the entire human race, while all the wealth of this earth is stolen from them. And the only thing that stands in the way of this program running to its inevitable conclusion are the people themselves. But the biggest killer, the wielder of the ultimate power against mankind, the most all-pervasive force that has kept the people of the world enslaved for so long, is fear. People often talk about the need to adopt an attitude of love, and in many ways they do so, but then through inner fear, they fail to apply it to reality around them. Each should ask themselves, if suffering exists in the world around me and I fail to address it, then am I really in a state of love and service to creation, or am I simply in a state of fear and denial of reality? Admittedly, it is often difficult for people to see through the haze, not only for people who are now beginning to see how the world works, but also for others who have been long active and yet unwittingly only focusing on a symptom rather than on the actual problem. And this is because when you look at all the little symptoms, it's chaos and far too difficult for most people to really make anything out, because nothing really makes sense. It's just a barrage of information and of disinformation. It doesn't begin to make any real sense until you begin to look at things holistically, and then it all falls neatly into place. Though often, even when the real problem is clearly seen, most people simply point the finger and fail to see the actual solution. It is time for each person on this planet to remember who and what you are, and to never lose focus of the fact that government was created by mankind in order to service mankind's needs, not the other way around. So you must always, always question authority. If someone in fancy dress interferes with your ability to be yourself to your fullest potential, if you have always respected others and there is no injured party from your actions, then you should always question what right anyone has to compel you to perform any action or to make any demands of you at all. As more and more rules are put into place, mankind is becoming increasingly more regimented. We now find police officers stationed on school grounds, as what was once a childhood prank and part of growing up is now often seen as a breach of law, a crime. Self-expression is frowned upon unless it is carried out under strict supervision. And at the rate our regulatory bodies are going, eventually society will no longer tolerate any individuality at all. Eventually it will be illegal to even think outside of the box. Essentially, illegal to be truly human. The truth of the matter is that the people of this world are, even now, living in a very low-security, open-air prison. And the only ones who can implement the positive change required to escape it and to pave the way for a free humanity are the people themselves. The solution has been there all along, for the solution lies with the people. It has always laid with the people, and all that is really required for mankind to escape from the prison that enslaves us is for people to realize the truth of the invisible bars that surround their minds, and to realize that the bars are only there due to people's belief that the system is real. The only reason you have to pay land rates, pay taxes, succumb to the will of greedy corporations, and adhere to legislation created by corrupt government bodies and designed to remove your liberties. The only reason all the modern world finds itself in a position where it is virtually enslaved by public servants is because you live in a divided society, and to people's failure to build common unity within their community, to get to know their neighbours, to support each other, and to see each other as valid. People have been taught to judge others by their differences, to play the blame game, to point the finger at another, and to voice their anger for their hardships and feel that they have achieved something, when by doing so they are simply perpetuating the division and effectively missing the actual problem altogether. Our leaders have replaced true and natural law with a set of rules of their own contrivance, and these rules have served to rob mankind of our earth and of our heritage. And we the people, the 99%, are truly the only ones who have the power to effect positive change. An alternative way of doing things, a system that empowers and frees the populace, will never be implemented via the means of the system that currently enslaves them. There is no legal remedy, no remedy in politics, no remedy in government. There can and will only ever be remedy found in natural law and in a population willing to honour it. And so now, more than ever, it is time for mankind to act and to clearly understand who we are. The most important thing we can do in the present moment is to realise that we each have the ability to peacefully but firmly stand to stop the further destruction of our water table and to prevent the rest of the transhumanist infrastructure from being put into place, and most importantly, to connect with our community and to lead by example in all that we do. And together we can easily reclaim our heritage and our birthright. But it will not be done while there is judgment or accomplished through violent revolution. Nor are they needed, because all it would take is mutual respect and a united act of non-compliance to a fictional system that enslaves the minds of almost all who inhabit this world due to people's belief that the system is real.
Civil disobedience is not something outside the realm of democracy. Democracy requires civil disobedience. Without civil disobedience, democracy does not exist.
You see, the solution lies with each of us. It lies with me, and it lies with you. And it lies in a simple choice between love and fear. Indeed, the path to remedy, the path to positive change, the path to alter the direction the ship of state is now sailing is right at our feet. All that is required is to take the first step. In Lakesh.
It's quite comical, actually, when you realize the difference between reality and what some people are talking on TV about.
You took the mark of the devil just so you can eat and breathe. Bow down at the feet and surrender liberty. Tyranny and terror, corrupted dictators, posing as your leaders while they poison every leader. Pumping fluoride in the water while they rape Iraqi daughters. Coming down the public fashion magazines and water. Now they slaughter weakened nations.
Τελείωσε το κομμάτι που βάλαμε από αυτό το ντοκιμαντέρ. Θέλετε να το δείτε από την αρχή. Μπορείτε να το δείτε στα περισσότερα από κάτω.